Hi there, and welcome to Oddly Coded, recommended by 4 out of 5 dentists, and the 5th dentist is lying. And speaking of lying, the new patch for Lies of P just came out recently, which made the game easier in some ways.
According to some fans.
Changed some aspects of some bosses and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, difficulty in video games. But before we do that, hello, my friends. I'm joined today by Dan. And also by Lyle,
that's my name.
But not by Matt, who unfortunately, when playing Oxygen Not Included, forgot to include his own oxygen and is probably passed out on a floor somewhere.
He's dead. It's unfortunate.
We'll find him eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah,
we'll get to him. He'll be fine.
He is all but confirmed dead, and that's it's unfortunate. But listen,
he's also all but.
Yeah, no, he became an entire ass. He like rotated, and then just two cheeks formed, and now he's just imagine like Electrode with a massive dumper. That's what Matt is.
Like if two electrodes just like came together, and
he's got like two
together.
Voltorbs on his back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one.
So today we're going to be talking about difficulty in video games. I want to have some really good discussions, starting with this whole Lies of P situation. I think the only one out of the three of us who actually is currently playing it is Lyle. Lyle, are you enjoying the game?
I am loving this game, sir.
All right.
No.
All right.
Very good. There's the content. All right, wrap it up. Let's go.
No.
Everywhere you look.
Lies of P is phenomenal. There are tons of us in the Souls community that have been wanting like a Bloodborne spiritual successor for a very long time. The setting is aesthetically dark and beautiful. The gameplay is great. Anyone that doesn't know, the Dark Souls games are made by From Software. For Lies of P is not made by From Software. It's made by an indie Korean studio. We mentioned it in the last episode, but anyway, what Steve had mentioned was that a patch had come out, like the first major patch, which lessened the health pools of some bosses. It made the drop rates of certain items like a little more prevalent for some things and less prevalent for other things. It's one of those things where like. A lot of fans are saying it made the game fundamentally easier, which it's very much not true. Like the bosses, it only affected 2 bosses, and those bosses like their attacks weren't made faster or slower. The move sets were not changed. It literally, as far as I had read, was literally just a health pool decrease. So that they're less tanky. But that's part of a false sense of difficulty, I guess, when it comes to those kinds of games. Like if you're at a boss and you're not really doing much damage, like you can choose to go grind away, get more souls, quote unquote, and then go level up, and then find more items, get like level up your weapon a little bit more. You go back, you do some more damage, learn the boss patterns, lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Shit is cool as hell. What?
Look, man, I get it. I'm right here. You can just say you are cool as hell. You don't have to say.
Dan, are you looking up up stuff about Lies of P right now?
Oh yeah,
yes. At the moment, I'm looking up because I don't.
Were you aware of it? Did you know about it?
I had no.
Oh yeah.
I had heard it maybe mentioned last episode, but
that seems to be like a prevailing thing. Like so many people didn't know about it, and that's crazy to me because I thought it was like a big like name release that was coming out, but then again you said it was like a smaller studio, so maybe they just didn't have the marketing budget that I thought they did. I thought I saw a trailer for it at like the
it was announced
Xbox
in like a
Direct
Sony
or something.
State of Play. It was like I think it was a PlayStation State of Play where they announced
it. Was it PlayStation? Okay.
And it is on all systems except for Switch. It is on PC. PlayStation and Xbox. It's on Game Pass. Anyone that wants to give it a shot.
There you go.
But no, those games like that game. The game right now is super fun. I am getting my ass handed to me, but that's just because it's not made. It's not made by From Software, but it very much is a studio that looked at all the From Software like Dark Souls-esque titles. So like the Dark Souls series, Sekiro, Bloodborne, and took little bits and pieces and aspects from those games and took notes and were like, all right, let's build a game from the things that we've learned by playing these other Souls games. And it very much is it's working very well for them. They made a very polished and well-made game.
Yeah,
no,
I will likely pick it up at some point. What's up, Dan?
I don't know a ton about like some of the studios that is behind it. I was just like looking into what studios were a part of it. Most notably Round 8 Studio and NeoWiz Games. I'm just seeing if they had made anything that I'm familiar with. Funny enough, did y'all know that NeoWiz Games made Battlefield Online along with
Really?
EA and DICE?
Yep.
That's very interesting. And also this is based on the story of Pinocchio.
Right.
What grows if he lies?
His nose.
That
His
is for
dick.
me to know and for you to find out. No, the game is actually designed for, if you are one with that part of the body, it is designed for you to grow.
If
no,
he
also kidding.
lies, the size of the enemies grow.
So you are given opportunities in the game to, like, someone will ask you a question and it will determine certain, like, the outcomes of certain quest lines. Like, you can lie to that you can lie to that character or tell them the truth. And it's something that you might have a little, like, what's like a little ethical dilemma or a moral dilemma. Like, for example, this one very minor side quest, this woman is asking you to go find her child, her baby. And so you go find her baby, or at least where she last thought the baby was. You find out that the baby was it was a baby puppet. So like it wasn't even a human baby, but it was the remains of a human baby or a baby puppet. And you bring it back to her, and she's like all happy. She's excited. Oh, my child, my sweet, sweet child! Like, how beautiful! Like, isn't this the most beautiful child you've ever seen? And so you can choose to be like, ma'am, that's a puppet. Or,
calm down, son. It's just a drawing.
Or you could be sympathetic and be like, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's great.
I'm gonna
Definitely
get
a real human boy, much like me, Pinocchio.
But you are Pinocchio, and like based on the lies or the truths that you tell, like you also evolve as a puppet. Like, you are the most advanced puppet in the world that Geppetto has made. So you can also kind of like gear towards turning into a human or more puppet like.
I'm really upset that in none of the promotional material that I've seen for this, not once has there been a weapon that he is at least wielding in this. It's very Dark Souls and Bloodborne-esque, where it's just like, oh, you found big sword, do this when you're walking. Oh, you found large axe, do this the entire time. Why is it that because he is a puppet, who's in the movie, one of his songs is literally talking about strings, why doesn't he have wires or strings that he can just sling around like the Blades of Chaos from God of War?
So funny that you mentioned that. If you notice his left hand, if you're able to see in any of the stuff, it's actually it's a puppet arm.
Oh shit.
So his left arm is a puppet arm, similar to Sekiro. That's an aspect they took from Sekiro,
Does
his
it
left
turn
arm
into a laser cannon?
Nah, unfortunately. But there is a tool that he uses that is like one of the customized tools that you use with his left arm, that is like a grappling hook that you can shoot out, that is like wire or string and pull enemies towards you, or pull yourself towards enemies.
There you go, Dan. They thought of everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is something in the game, won't spoil what or where or when or how, that does grow or shrink based on your actions.
It his nipples?
It's your ego as you get better at the game.
Nipple.
The singular
third nipple.
Gentlemen, I would like to transition. I mean, I know this sounds like a really fun game, and I'd love to play it, but I would like to actually transition into the topic of today.
You're good. You're good.
For sure.
No, but honestly, it sets a good precedent. Like, we know now, the three of us know more about that game, but we're not necessarily talking about just that game today. I'd actually like to start with Dan, because Lyle got to talk about Liza P. Hi, Dan.
Hello, I was dead last time. Welcome.
You were dead. I'm glad to see that you made it out of Sora's basement.
No.
Where did he stick your Keyblade?
He didn't actually use that. We just kind of hang out with the Disney characters. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. Yeah, pretty much. That was the entirety of the thing. I was strapped to a chair with rope, and then all I could hear was people talking behind me, being like, "Yuck." Yeah, it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like, nobody said you could talk.
Smack the bitch.
Yeah. They were just talking about like ransom and stuff, but they ran out of time for that building that they were renting to kidnap me in, and so they just kind of had to.
And so they jumped in the gummy ship and flew away.
Yeah, sure, why not? Whatever that is. Anyway, what are you wanting?
Dan, hi,
hello, welcome,
welcome back. What the question I would like to ask you is, what is one of the hardest games that you've played that you've completed,
or one of the games that have made you the hardest?
No, not. We'll talk about that. We already talked about Honey Pop, whatever the fuck.
Oh, that's right.
So what's one of the games? What's one of the hardest games that you've actually finished, like the main storyline or whatever?
So, I have talked about this game at great length before on this podcast, but it is legitimately one of the most stupidly hard gaming experiences that I've ever had. Mm-hmm. You may be familiar with an old-school fighting game by the name of Dragonball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3.
Yeah, you've mentioned it once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice.
Since we've known each other.
Just for any fans out there that like that game, don't try to challenge me. You won't win. Anyway, here's the thing. And that is a challenge. That is a challenge, by the way. I want people to challenge me now. That'd be really fun. But in this game, as you can imagine, there's a tournament mode. There's a tournament mode, as there is for a lot of those games.
Yeah.
And
like
so the tournament mode then divides itself into 5 different tournament styles.
Okay.
You've got your World Tournament mode, which is, it all takes place on the World Tournament stage. Did you kill the fly?
No.
Lyle's playing his own fighting game over there right now.
He'll get it throughout the course of this episode. We'll put a little hit marker whenever he finally kills it. With like the little 999.
Pulling a one-punch man and just can't kill the fly.
So there's a good list of broken characters in this game.
Sure.
Most namely Perfect Cell, Kid Buu, and the character that I had to play in order to stand a chance in this, at least on the hardest difficulty, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta.
Okay.
He deals a lot of damage real fast.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you're only able to go up to difficulty 3. It's like on a star system, like 1 to 3 stars. And so if we were to equate that to difficulty levels on, like, say, the training mode, that would be like level 5. This is max level difficulty, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. And so, for whatever reason, this game, and this tournament mode specifically, you kind of unlock a level 6 and a level 7 of difficulty, where shit happens because it's broken. Like, characters will be on one end of the map, and they'll immediately teleport to the other end of the map. No techniques are required for this. They won't even do like a cool sound effect or a little animation or anything. They'll just be like, over here.
Like it's just unfair.
Yeah, it's just broken and unfair,
it's
and it knows
quite
it's
literally
broken
just
and unfair.
Like it's just entirely broken.
Yeah.
And so I remember this because I got blisters on my thumbs from this. And so it was the best out of it was the best.
I knew you wanted to say it, because I wanted to say it too.
I refrained.
Well, now you're going to have to tell me, because now I'm curious.
I've got blisters on me fingers.
Wow, okay. All right, cool. It took me a second to understand what you were talking about. Anyway,
I saw his face.
It's the British accent.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But Jesus Christ, if I wasn't at 1 HP whenever I got a lucky shot on him.
Was he in the game? Is that why?
Huh?
Were you fighting Jesus Christ?
No.
That explains the teleporting.
Unfortunately not. No. He probably just would have been like, my child. And then I would have died.
He turned water into death.
My furry monkey child.
Turns water into cyanide.
I won't lie. You pull that bottle into frame, and like I couldn't see at first glance. It just looked like a giant mug of milk, and I'm like, I'm not judging, but all right.
It is. I'm just gonna cover up the Arizona logo so you don't see that. So you don't see that it's a giant glass of milk.
Arizona sponsor us.
Don't.
Jesus is in Dragon Ball Z Budokai and he just turns water into an ass beating.
Yes, that is absolutely true, and his name is Perfect Cell.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, if that was not one of the most difficult experiences that I've ever had to deal with. It wasn't the fact necessarily that I was 9 years old, but it was definitely... That shit is it's one of those things that's like cemented in your brain, because you're just like, I could probably beat that now. Like, as a 20-something-year-old, I could probably wipe the floor with this guy, but at 9 years old, that shit's traumatizing. Like, you're sitting there drenched in sweat. You've drowned your friends in the room with all your sweat. You have blisters on your fingers from the controller. The controller is in half. The TV has exploded for some reason.
Friends have actually gone home at this point. You didn't even notice.
They're gone.
Yeah,
they didn't even spend the night.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Turn around.
That is difficult. That is difficult experience number one. I don't know how many of these we're going to get to, but I have a few up in the brain.
That's good for now. That's good for now because we're gonna bring it all together a little bit. So I'm gonna swap over to Lyle now and ask you, what is the hardest game that you have finished? Finished.
Man needs to bring out the list. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right. I know you're a big fan of like the Souls games, Bloodborne, like all of those, and I've played one of them as well. But yeah, what would you say is one of the hardest? It doesn't have to be the hardest, but one of the hardest that you liked.
I mean, that I liked. Okay, good.
Oh, you know what? You know what? Reframe that. Rephrase that. You didn't have to like it. What was one of the hardest?
No, you're fine. We already talked about it, and I went on the rant.
Oh, okay.
That shit was ass, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again. No,
you know what we're talking about.
Even though the Dark Souls and FromSoft games are like my soul food, my go-to like comfort games now. Now they are. However, the very first time that I ever played a Dark Souls game was Dark Souls 3. It was, I think Dark Souls 3 is easily now that Elden Ring, before Elden Ring came out, it was easily the best entry game into that franchise. But it was, so I started Dark Souls 3 and I was streaming it. I went into it. I was like, all right, I'm prepared. Like, I'd heard everything about, the Dark Souls series, like this game is supposedly notoriously difficult, blah, blah, blah. I get into it, and granted, I had a little bit of a buffer because I had watched the Game Grumps play Dark Souls 3 at first, so like I knew like the first boss, so I knew what to kind of expect.
Yeah, you knew what you were kind of getting into.
I think I died once or twice on the first boss and then made it through, and I was like, all right, this really isn't that bad. That was famous last words.
Oh, how innocent he was.
I get to the fucking nutsack tree, and Steve, I don't remember.
I remember the nutsack tree.
The nutsack tree. There's a boss that's a giant nutsack that he is a tree, and he literally like fights you. He's like, he has like 2 arms, 2 legs, but he's in the position as if he was like giving birth, and that's how he like waddles around the arena. And then he like shoots these yellow jizz-filled blobs at you that are like acid, and slams his nutsack body on the ground to like, he does a bunch of different attacks, and so like the only way to kill him, you have to pop his syphilis bubbles on his legs.
Oh God!
As we all know, acid is stored in the balls.
It's the only. It's really the only way to like do the damage to him.
Scientific.
But my first time against Nutsack Tree, like I couldn't get it, and I rage quit so fucking hard. This probably was like 20 minutes into the game.
Wait, hold on. I have played a little bit of Dark Souls 3. Like I played a little bit of it. Mm-hmm. Was this like, are you in like a big square room and there's like a big like balcony?
It's rectangular, yeah.
That you can like jump off of and be like, bitch! Because I don't know. I remember there being like a gross crawly dude that's super huge.
There are many rectangular square arenas in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't really narrow it down.
There's only one.
It's very early on in the game.
There's only one boss that I can think of at the moment that you actually do damage to by dropping down and hitting him. And that was in a DLC area that you don't find for much longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't play Dark Souls 3 as much as I thought I did. I guess there was a guy that was super fast and he killed me a lot.
I believe it. I mean, it also narrows it down, but I believe it.
Dan already talked about this with his game a little bit, about like what made like that hardest difficulty, what made it difficult. And in your case, Dan, it was literally just it pulled out all the stops and just made it as unfair as possible.
Oh yeah,
and it knew it was unfair. And so, Lyle, in your case, I mean, a lot of people might already know the answer to this, but like in your perspective, what makes Dark Souls 3 or any of those kind of games, what makes them difficult?
So, and this is predominantly opinion based, so
Sure,
surprise,
yeah,
anyone in the comments wants to rag on me for this, by all means, have at it.
Let's get a TikTok going.
No, but for this particular instance, when it came to the boss factory, when I first got there, I didn't 100% grasp the concept of memorizing boss patterns and like attack patterns and then coming back and then just lather, rinse, repeating until I had the dance down.
Yeah.
But when it comes to these kinds of games, just overall, a lot of people will give a negative stigma to the Dark Souls games or Sekiro or Bloodborne or whatever and say, oh man, these games are so fucking hard, like you gotta get good and blah blah blah. And it's like, to an extent, yes, you have to get good, but at the same time, that's what Dark Souls doesn't do that a lot of other games nowadays that we play do, is they don't handhold you with tutorials. They don't handhold you with
for sure,
with like let's trap you in this arena right at the start of the game, and then this enemy's about to attack you. Wait, freeze frame, press B to block. Like it doesn't do that shit. You have to learn by trial and error. You learn the game by playing the game, and a lot of people think that is. They think that that's a difficulty when in actuality it's just an illusion of difficulty. It's an illusion, Michael, an illusion.
If that ain't the realest shit I've ever heard, though, like you watch 10 minutes of cutscenes, it's the most cinematic shit you've ever seen in your life. You spawn in, and it's just like bloop. You should know how to play this game.
And it's like.
It is basically what it is.
They like Dark Souls does do a thing where like it'll leave, like as you start the game, it'll leave little messages on the ground that are optional that you can read that says like, press R1 for a light attack, and it's like okay, cool. I could have figured that out by pressing the button myself, and you didn't push it into my face. Like I didn't have to read that message. I was taught that I can read messages by looking at this thing and saying, oh, that looks unusual. Let me see if I can interact with that. But yeah, no, that if that answers your question, Steve, that's pretty much it. It's just like, it's a false sense of difficulty. Nintendo is guilty, but like out the ass for that. But that's because they're a family-oriented game. They make games that are catered more towards you know family members playing with your family and a younger demographic. So you need tutorials. You need to teach people how to play games. But as teenagers and adults, like you don't need to be spoon-fed every single thing in a video game. You don't need to be spoon-fed how to play every single fucking... unless they have this just, like, groundbreaking, earth-shattering, like, new development or intuitive design aspect to this game that we've never seen before. Sure.
Right.
Give me a little more instruction. But for the most part, I want to figure it out myself.
Sure.
I want to see the improvement on my end, not because the game told me that I had to do a certain thing.
I even appreciate the button maps that you'll see. Like the ones where it's just like the lines coming off and it'll be like, this button does this button does that. I know it's convoluted and crazy as shit, but I do appreciate them.
I always hated those. Are you talking about like where it's a loading screen and it'll just show like the button map?
Not necessarily a loading screen, but it's something that you can pull up yourself.
Well, it's seen in loading screens. Yeah,
I hate whenever it's the loading screen and you're just like, wait, I didn't have enough time to look at that. What the fuck? Like, you're like, okay, press A to jump, press X to swing, but what? What? No, come back!
How do I
interact?
It's
just like, okay, time to play the game. So
this leads into like I'm all about 100% accessibility. Like, right? I want as many people to be able to experience games and get things out of those experiences as possible. Yeah. However, to caveat alongside that, I also do believe that like, just like not every single movie in theaters is for somebody, not every single video game is for everyone, and that's a personal preference thing. I I personally don't feel like a game studio needs to bend over backwards to throw in, and this is the common difficulty argument, like, oh, we need a difficulty slider for Dark Souls. Like, no, because with that kind of series, the experience is overcoming the challenges that you taught yourself, and by learning on your own.
Is the point.
The difficulty is the purpose,
yeah, absolutely.
And that in and of itself is the experience. And if you give somebody the option to lower like a boss's health pool, or like you give somebody a slider that like slows down enemy attacks or boss attacks, like it's not truly overcoming the intended challenge.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope, and it's not a popular opinion, but I'm all, like I said, honestly, I'm all about.
I've seen both sides of that argument, honestly, because it's just like, games are there to be played and there to be enjoyed, and companies who make games want as many people as possible to enjoy that game. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I mean, and I don't think there's any argument against things like colorblind modes and like, obviously there's nothing against that, just like different things
like that out the ass, please. Accessibility in
anything
that regard
you can do to make it accessible in the sense of like ability to even get to play the game, like that's great.
Yes.
But I mean you do raise a really good point about like, whenever you have these games where the point of them is the fact that they are difficult. Like, yeah, obviously there's a lot of people who are veteran Souls players who are just like, oh, they're not that hard. Okay, yeah, but the point of them is they're hard. You just have played them a lot and get how to play them. The people starting out, I played the only Souls game I've played of that, like only Souls-like game I played, it was Dark Souls 3. It was back whenever I streamed. I played it for the first time. I played it all the way through. I barely knew what to expect. I think I had watched a few friends like stream it, like, and I saw bits and pieces, but for the most part, I did not know what to expect, other than that I knew the stigma of Souls games is that they are hard and they are punishing. They will punish you. It will feel unfair, but I can tell you from right, exactly. I can tell you from actually playing through it for the first time, a first-time player, the gratification that I felt after beating every single boss was indescribable. I remember, and I can't even remember all the boss names necessarily, but I remember one of the optional bosses that I fought. What's his name? Is the guy that rides the dragon.
The Nameless King.
Nameless King. What's his name? Well, he doesn't have one. That's
the mystery.
And lore, too. We actually don't know his name.
Yeah. Well, yeah, fair enough. That would make sense.
His name's Cliff.
His name's Peter. Peter. So I fought him, and I remember, because I did it all on stream, I think I started the stream fighting him, and I ended the stream because
I know which one you're talking about.
It took like 4 hours to beat this guy.
Oh, I over and
over and over, slamming my head against the wall. But the small amounts of gratification that I got from figuring out a pattern, from being like, holy shit, I know how to do this. The moment I realized I could, it was over. It was like, I'm going to get this. I already know I can. Sure. I've memorized, not memorized, but like I recognize the patterns. I see what's going to happen before he attacks. Even if it's like a couple frames, I recognize it because I've been doing this for hours and I get it. And it was those moments that made me understand like why people love these games so much and why I kind of agree with you, Lyle. Like, I mean, I can see the argument for sure. For whenever it comes to like more people getting to enjoy a game, but at the same time, like the point of the game is the difficulty, and overcoming that difficulty, like I would not feel nearly as accomplished if all I did was go, okay, I'm gonna turn it down from expert down to intermediate, and then I beat the boss like within the next couple times I fought him. It wouldn't, like, I would have felt no gratification from that because it's just like I've been working towards this for hours. and you know, I could go on and on about it, but I just
so
go
if
in circles. But you know what I mean.
So if you were to play Guitar Hero, for example, and you had you had the auto strum feature on, and you full completed Through the Fire and Flames, would you feel as accomplished?
No.
I'm not saying that, and that's my example, folks. Like I'm not saying that these accessibility options, these cheat code like alternatives, like they're not bad things. Like if you want to be able to do the thing, by all means do the thing. But again, in my opinion, there's a fine line between like doing something like color blindness or color correct, like that kind of stuff versus giving like the devs straight up giving you like a debug mode. And that's
because then what's the point? Like, what's the point? There is no point. Because like if you just wanted to play through Dark Souls 1, 2, or 3 or whatever for the lore, like because a lot of like RPGs have that where it's like they'll have just the story, like, you know, difficulty setting where it's just like the enemies are super easy and you're really just playing because you enjoy the story. And that's I mean, a lot of games have that and that's fine. If Dark Souls had that, it's just like, well, you could just go on YouTube and look up Dark Souls lore, you know. Yeah, just like you don't have to pay $60 for a game to not get a challenge out of it.
That's also part of the challenge.
Hour-long video.
Because with Dark Souls, like you read the lore on items that get dropped down, or you find like a notebook in a room that was after a boss fight. Like you learn that lore by getting the experience. You don't like Dark Souls cutscenes are. The extent of those cutscenes are literally like, oh, you opened a super heavy door, and then like the boss appeared. You don't really get you don't really get anything from those cutscenes. So they're putting in like a for the story difficulty option wouldn't really make sense.
Right.
I mean the most that you'll get out of a Souls game cutscene is probably at the beginning. Like the opening cutscene.
It's really cool too.
The Dark Souls 3 one in particular had some of the most ridiculous shit in it, and that's why I love making fun of it so much.
Oh yeah.
Like, but I get it. Like, behind that old gross looking hag dude that is just walking with his stick and then he falls and he's dead, I guess. Sure, whatever. There's probably
game's over.
There's probably some story there about a king that's an asshole and his followers that are now dead. Sure, whatever. The point is that I feel bad for that guy. And that's what it's supposed to make you feel. You know, like
thank you.
I mean,
hell, that opening cinematic is where we get the meme of Yorm the Giant standing there with the giant sword, and then you have the player who's like small and like he's about to attack.
Is that
Yorm.
really where that comes from?
That's literally Dark Souls 3, and that's Yorm the Giant going up against the player, and it's like I'd never, and I maybe I'm just misinterpreting the meme, but every time I see the meme, it's like.
That's what it makes you feel.
The player, well, no, the player is supposed to be representing like something small and easily squishable. And the Yorm the Giant is supposed to be the like opposing force, but I don't think
the challenge you're supposed to overcome.
But I don't think enough people truly realize like, wait, the small player beats the big guy. Like why are you making it so that the easy to understand concept that many people wouldn't get on the one that falls?
Yeah, and it's a gimmick fight.
yeah, for sure. What they don't show you is the building next to the giant that you climb up because he doesn't notice you on your way up. And then you just shoot him once with a big bow and arrow that's conveniently placed and armed at the top.
I don't think that's how that goes.
I don't fucking know. I didn't get to that part. I got to the ball sack tree, maybe.
Yorm the Giant, you have a sword that you conjure wind with, and you kill Yorm the Giant with the Wind Waker.
Yeah,
that's dope. I love it.
It's pretty cool.
I'll have to give Dark Souls 3 a try.
Give it
again.
another try. We'll hang out in like the Discord or something, and
I gotta get my PS4 fixed, dudes. Like my PS4 is fucked. I cleaned that.
And then you can play.
One last thing along those lines. People when Elden Ring first came out, you could probably ask anyone in the Souls community. They'll say that Elden Ring is easily the most accessible Souls-like game. And they did this in a variety of ways. Number one, it's an open world game. Like you can literally, if you come across a super hard boss in an area, you're like, oh, I don't want to fuck with this guy yet. I'm going to go over here and maybe level up a little bit. Like the world is far more open than any of the other Dark Souls games. Elden Ring has far more availability options in terms of like your build. Magic is a little more varietous. There's more variety, more varied. Hey,
got you.
Put that shit in post.
There's more variety in the magic. There's more variety in your strength build, in your dexterity builds. There's more variety in weapons, in spell casting. There's actual fucking like different tiers of summons that you can get. Like you could summon in other Dark Souls games, but you were summoning other players like right before a boss fight or for a certain area. This is literally like you're summoning a pack of wolves that you could also turn around and go somewhere and level them up. Like, it's insane. Like they made it far more accessible. It's the difficulty is still there.
For sure.
That was also the other.
They just gave you more tools.
It just seems more approachable that way.
Yeah.
The other last thing that I wanted to say was that
Attack on Titan last chapter part 3
part 2
for real
part 2
the movie.
The games are not built to be unfair. The games are not built to be difficult. They are literally, as I said before, just not meant to hold your hand. So while you're used to being told that there might be an enemy around the corner, like if you get hit by an enemy, that's your fault. It's the player's fault for not checking the corner.
Yeah.
Like
they're not built to be unfair. They're built to, like you said, not be handholdy, and they're built to be punishing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're built to
it's unforgiving.
Punish you for making mistakes. So whenever you get better at the game and make fewer mistakes, you're gonna beat the game.
You're coming across Yorm the Giant and you don't manage your stamina well enough and you're just trying to spam dodge away and he hits you, you're gonna lose 3/4 of your fucking health. Like that's the fault of the player, not the fault of the game. It's not the dev's responsibility to make Yorm the fucking giant hit you with a fucking hammer. And be like, oh, I'm sorry, did that hurt?
Press R3.
Yorm, that really hurt.
Press R3 for a cutscene so you can get your health back.
What are you doing, step giant?
Fucking Christ.
Okay, well, speaking of Honey Pop, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I wanted to pivot the conversation just a little bit. It's the
Pivot.
same. It's the same conversation, but I wanted to focus on, rather than making games more accessible or lessening the difficulty, I want your guys' opinions on, is there a right or wrong way to make a game more difficult, like to add difficulty to a game? Is there a right or a wrong way to do that?
Yes.
I'd like to start out by saying, or like by giving two comparisons. As I've said, this is what, episode 9 of the podcast, and I've probably talked about it on like 5 of them. Hades.
Literally the first thing I thought of.
One of my favorite aspects of Hades is the fact that after you beat the game, which if you are not accustomed to roguelikes, it's going to take you a while to even beat like a one run of the game. It took me a while to beat my first one, but then I started to get better at it. Anyway, that's not the point I was trying to make. We already know roguelikes are difficult. Point I was trying to make is, after that you have this thing called the Pact of Punishment. The Pact of Punishment allows you to make your runs of your dungeon runs, allows you to make your runs more difficult in specific ways. So you have a heat level and there's different difficulty options you can choose from, such as enemies move and attack 20% faster, or whenever you heal, you only heal for like 50% of how much you would normally heal for, or there's even
Boons
one where
have
like
one fewer option per
you have less options for power-ups. The
shop
stuff like
that.
Bosses have different like move sets, different stuff like that, and I think that is one of the coolest ways to make your game more difficult, because rather than making the game like easier for players, which actually, in all fairness, Hades does have an easier mode, but we can talk about that later. For the people who don't want to use that, it's an awesome way to be like, here, you've already beaten this game, which is by all accounts difficult. Make it more difficult, and you get to choose how you make it difficult. What are you good at or bad at in this game? Like, there's one where it's just like traps do plus 400% damage or something.
Oh my God.
So if you run into traps a lot, you don't want to hit that option.
The lava stage, dude. The lava stage.
Yeah, it's very punishing. But I mean, I know when we talked about Hades, it was whenever we talked about somebody finally beat the Heat 64 run or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That was back in like episode 1,
like
I
episode
think,
2 or 1,
yeah. Which we won't talk about that again, but I just think it's one of the coolest systems I've ever seen for making a game for adding difficulty to a game. Whereas in contrast, what I really hate is I love the game. I love playing the game, so it sucks to bash on it because everyone bashes on it. But fucking Overwatch 2, okay? So, and I'm not talking about the PvP because that difficulty is just based on how good the people on your team and the other team are.
That's the only game.
Good, Scrubs.
That's the only game they have. They don't have a PvE.
Well, yes, they do. They have the PvE levels that they release. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that whole debacle. We're not going to talk about that whole debacle because, yes, I agree with you. It's not what we were promised.
That's an entire can of worms, and that
the official stance of this
acid.
podcast is we all agree that the PvE we were given was not the PvE we were promised. Moving on from that, the PvE we were given that you got to pay the money for or whatever, and you actually play. There's like 4 difficulty levels for each of these stages. Now, the levels themselves are kind of interesting, and there's lore building and stuff, and that's what people did want. And there's cool. The cutscenes are really cool.
Oh yeah.
What I didn't like is that the way that it increased difficulty for each of the for each like level of difficulty, like from the easiest up to the hardest, they literally just made the enemies tankier. Like you have to unload like 3 clips into some of the enemies to get them to die on like the hardest level. And it's just like, this isn't fun. Like this is just
tedious.
It's tedious. Yes, that is absolutely what I was going for.
The stupid
it's not
knockdown shit too is annoying as fuck to me.
The knockdown.
Like whenever you get like killed or whatever, and instead of just like going to and you're just hitting the hurt real bad, and then Mercy comes over and it takes like 10 seconds.
Well, you're talking about how they made it so like you can't get instantly like picked up by your team.
Yeah, no,
you have to like wait 10 seconds before they can even start rezzing you.
Yeah, no, because you're fighting
that is kind
God.
of annoying. Because like it already takes time to res you.
Exactly.
So much goddamn waiting.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what it is. It's and for those of you who don't know, that was an Ego Raptor thing. But yeah, it has the exact same problem, but in the case of like, rather than the tedium being just like waiting for an enemy to do something so you can do something, the tedium here is I'm literally just shooting you like I would normally do on any other mode, on any other like level of difficulty, but it just takes more bullets to kill you. That's not fun. That's not a good time.
It's not a challenge. It's not.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not something that's thought provoking. It doesn't cause me to think critically about what I'm having to do, what my next move's going to be.
Yeah.
Like my next move is going to be
keep shooting my gun. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you guys have any opinions on that specifically, or if there's other ways that you have enjoyed seeing the difficulty come out in a game or get more difficult with like higher levels of difficulty. However you want to go about it. Dan looks like he has something to say about it. Go ahead.
So I wanna merge this question with the previous, because it is also a story of a game that I beat that was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of self-imposed handicaps or challenges. Like as an example, for those
like
of you
Nuzlocke and stuff.
Yeah, Nuzlocke for perfect example. Hardcore Minecraft, other good example.
Yeah.
Like you can choose to turn that shit off, but as soon as you put it on there, you better be making a 100-day video. Otherwise, there's no point in playing. You will be getting you will be getting 6.5 million views and a sponsorship from Raid Shadow Legends as a reward for completing 100 days. But for those of you who knew me as the streamer guy for a very short run of my streaming career, I played a game by the name of Marvel's Spider-Man for the PS4, in which case
I know where you're going with this.
So Spider-Man, he's a pretty cool character. He's a pretty cool character who I need pictures of at the moment. By the way,
Peter Porker.
Yeah, Peter Porker.
Bring me pictures of spider feet.
Anyways, Jesus Christ.
Editor, you know what to do.
Replay it. Yeah. I want pictures of
Dave Grohl.
But one of Spider-Man's most prolific things, as you can imagine, is using webs.
Oh yeah.
I decided that I didn't need that shit. I didn't need webs whatsoever, and so I decided to beat the entirety of Spider-Man PS4 on the hardest difficulty. Mind you, I don't know if you knew about that one, Steve.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, no, that was on spectacular difficulty,
insane.
Absolutely. And on stream, I got through half of it without webs.
Yeah.
There is a very famous clip on either one of my live channels or something like that. There's a mission where you're chasing a helicopter that has like a trailer hanging off of it throughout the city. It's causing all sorts of havoc. It's really fun and cool. You have to swing to catch up to this thing. There's
you can't just like take a taxi.
Hey, yo, follow that helicopter.
Follow that crane.
Helicopters. Hey, I'm flying here.
Where'd you get your license? A cereal box? That's a quote from Spider-Man 2 for the PS2 for those of you who are playing along at home.
It is.
But thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for that. No, please keep serenading me throughout the rest of the story.
Has to speed up as the timer goes down.
Yeah. So it was actually being like a speech jammer. Holy shit!
I know.
But
that's why I stopped.
That was the absolute worst. Holy shit! Like you could see the gears turning in my head for a second.
Smoke was coming out of your ears.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. Acid was coming out of the balls, as you can imagine.
As it usually does.
That's where it goes.
I spent the better part of how long was that stream? Like 3-4 hours? Something like that?
I do not remember, but
you
it was
left
a long
like halfway
time.
through it.
I probably left at some point because I had to like go do something with my life.
But Steech can tell you that
compelling.
I had to figure out because throughout the course of the game you can get skills to upgrade your Spider-Man. And so there is a skill that you can get to where you can charge up your jump to make him jump further or higher, as the case would be. And so I had to get that one first, because if I can't use webs, such as just regular swinging or his zip to point, right? That is one of his like craziest things like to get around. And then another skill on top of that, as soon as you land, you can hit X again, and he will rebound.
To do like
and
a super
go
jump.
even
exactly.
He'll rebound to do a secondary jump, and you can just keep chaining that over and over to gain a lot of distance.
Yeah,
that coupled on to the wall running up, and being able to sprint forward as well as doing like the parkour and stuff like that. I had to figure out a route through that part of the city. Like, I had to, like, weave my way through buildings and shit. I had to, like, dive in between, like, taxis and trees and all sorts of other shit just to get a chance to get halfway through that mission. And this isn't even part of what actually got me to win. I believe it was Green Raw Bean was in chat when this shit went down. I was running up a building, and it was probably the most perfect run I had gotten. I was running up a building as the helicopter apparently was turning the corner and did a U-turn and was now coming towards me.
Yeah.
And so I was at the perfect height on that building to whenever I breached the surface and I was looking at Manhattan's crazy, dumb fucking skyline, I saw a triangle. I saw a triangle QuickTime event, and I pressed that shit so fast. I was on that shit like white on rice. Oh no, my phone died! And Fuck me! God damn it! It wanted pictures of Spider-Man, but it never got them.
Spider feet.
Oh! Is it coming back?
Huh?
I won the day. I won the day, and I shit myself. Anyway, I'm gonna figure this out. Somebody else talk. Jesus.
Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, we'll put like a picture of Dan up. That's fine.
Yeah, put a picture of me.
We'll put a picture of Dave Grohl in a Spider-Man suit.
I'm not gonna do that. So I'm so distracted by fucking. For anyone who's just listening, Dan's camera just completely.
My
shit the
phone is
bed.
just completely fucking dead. It died. It's
Balls
no
ran out of
longer-
acid.
It's no longer usable. It's
Well,
dead. And so,
honestly, we're reaching the point
Hold on.
where it's probably good to wrap things up a little bit. With that, I would like to come to our reoccurring segment, which is the subscriber of the week. So this week's subscriber of the week is nobody, because nobody answered the question last week.
so fuck
But if
you
you
all.
want to be the subscriber of the week next week, tell us about the hardest game you've ever played. Did you beat it? Did you not beat it? Or you can give us your opinion on accessibility in video games, because I mean that it's an important subject, and honestly, I can see arguments for either side of it. I do believe it's one of those things that doesn't have one correct answer. We have our opinions, and that's fine. I mean, we can be civil about our opinions, but okay, Lyle can't be, but the rest of us can be. But yeah, let us know about your opinions on should hard video games where the point is to be difficult, should they be more accessible? That's, let us know what you think. Anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for joining me.
Of course.
Oh shit, we gotta go get Matt.